They were told to surrender VIP seats, until one call exposed the airline's owner, shattered privilege, fired staff, and turned prejudice into a career-ending reckoning instantly. Before the story unfolds, hit subscribe, drop a comment with your location, and get comfortable. This one's worth your full attention. The whisper cut through the lounge like a blade wrapped in silk. They should move, those seats belong to people who actually deserve them. Vivienne Ashford's voice carried just enough volume to ensure everyone heard, though she pretended otherwise. Her eyes, cold and calculating behind designer sunglasses, fixed on the two young black women seated near the floor-to-ceiling windows of the executive lounge. What Vivienne didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have imagined, was that these weren't just any passengers. They were Elise and Estelle Crawford, co-founders of a revolutionary financial technology company. And their father wasn't just any concerned parent on speed dial. He was the man who, 3 months ago, had acquired controlling interest in the very airline whose lounge now held its breath, waiting to see how this moment would unfold. 5 minutes. That's all it took for one phone call to unravel careers, terminate contracts, and expose a culture of casual cruelty that had thrived in the shadows of first-class privilege. This isn't just a story about a flight. It's about two sisters who refused to shrink themselves and the devastating cascade of consequences that followed when entitlement finally met its match. The Transcontinental Airways Executive Lounge at Denver International Airport hummed with the particular energy of wealth at rest. Ice clinked in crystal glasses. Conversations about quarterly earnings and European estates floated through air perfumed with expensive cologne and freshly brewed artisan coffee. Leather seats the color of burnished copper dotted the space, positioned to maximize the mountain views beyond the windows. Elise and Estelle Crawford occupied two of those seats, their presence a study in quiet confidence. At 26, they were mirror images of each other, the same warm sienna skin, the same intelligent dark eyes, the same graceful way of moving through the world. Their natural hair was styled in intricate cornrows that took 8 hours to complete, adorned with thin gold threads that caught the afternoon light. They wore matching outfits, tailored burgundy jumpsuits and cream blazers that whispered luxury without shouting it. Beauty aside, what truly set them apart was their brilliance. Both had earned degrees in computer science and economics from Howard University, graduating with honors that opened doors everywhere. But they hadn't walked through those doors, they'd built their own. Their company, Meridian, was an app designed to bring financial literacy and investment opportunities to communities historically locked out of wealth building. In 2 years, they'd secured $15 million in venture capital funding and partnerships with 3 major banks. This trip to Paris was their victory lap and their launching pad. They'd been selected as keynote speakers for the International Tech Innovation Conference, a platform that would introduce Meridian to a global audience. Their first-class tickets, purchased months in advance with miles earned through their business expenses, represented more than comfort. They were a symbol of how far they'd come. Estelle scrolled through their presentation slides on her tablet, her brow furrowed in concentration. I want to add another data point about the wealth gap in the third section. The statistics from last quarter are even more compelling. You're overthinking it, Elise said, though her smile was affectionate. We could present this in our sleep at this point. I don't want good, Elise, I want flawless. We're already flawless, Elise replied, squeezing her sister's hand. Paris is going to lose its mind over us. That's when their peaceful bubble burst. Vivienne Ashford materialized like a storm cloud, all blonde highlights and pursed lips, trailing a harried-looking gate agent named Marcus. Everything about Vivienne screamed calculated affluence, her Hermes scarf, her Chanel bag, her Cartier watch. But it was her expression that truly defined her. The permanent pinch of someone perpetually disappointed by a world that refused to arrange itself according to her specifications. Excuse me, Vivienne announced, not to the twins but at them, her gaze fixed on a point somewhere above their heads. Elise and Estelle looked up, their expressions neutral but curious. Marcus, the gate agent, cleared his throat. His name tag sat crooked on his uniform and sweat beaded at his temples. Ma'am, he began, addressing Vivienne with obvious discomfort, as I explained, the flight is completely full. There are no available seats in first class. Vivienne's hand fluttered dismissively, her bracelets creating a discordant jangle. That's absurd. I've been Platinum Elite for over a decade. There are always solutions. Her eyes finally landed on the twins and something flickered in them, a calculation cold and instantaneous. What about these two? Marcus's face drained of color. He looked at the sisters, then back at Vivienne, a man watching a car accident in slow motion. These passengers are confirmed in seats 2A and 2B, ma'am. Their reservations are. They can move, Vivienne interrupted, her tone making it clear this was a statement of fact, not a suggestion. My husband is in 2C. We've always traveled together. I had to book late because of a family emergency and your incompetent system separated us. These girls can take my business class seat. I'm certain they won't object. The phrase "these girls" landed like a slap. Not women, not passengers, girls. It dripped with condescension, with the unspoken implication that their presence in first class was somehow provisional, easily revoked. Elise felt familiar heat rising in her chest, anger mixed with exhaustion. How many times had they been in this position? How many times had they been forced to prove their right to occupy space that others assumed wasn't meant for them? She was the diplomat between the sisters, the one who could keep her voice steady even when rage threatened to consume her. Estelle, however, had no such restraint. Her eyes narrowed as she set down her tablet with a deliberate click. Actually, she said, her voice honey-sweet and razor-sharp, we do object. We booked these specific seats 4 months ago. Vivienne's perfectly shaped eyebrows shot upward. She seemed genuinely shocked that they'd spoken, let alone disagreed. I'm sure Transcontinental can offer compensation. Some vouchers perhaps. It's really not a problem. It is a problem, Elise interjected, her tone smooth as silk over steel. We specifically chose these seats because we have work to complete during the flight. We require the space and privacy. We have no intention of moving. Silence descended, thick and uncomfortable. Other passengers in the lounge had stopped pretending not to listen. They watched with the fascination of people observing a drama that didn't directly affect them. Marcus looked like he wished the ground would open and swallow him whole. He was in over his head, caught between policies and pressure, with no good options in sight. But Vivienne Ashford hadn't built a life of getting her way by accepting the word no. She leaned toward Marcus, her voice dropping to what she probably thought was a confidential whisper but was actually loud enough for half the lounge to hear. Look, I don't want to make a scene, but this is a matter of loyalty. I spend hundreds of thousands with this airline annually. Are you truly going to prioritize them over me? The word "them" hung in the air, drawing a line in the sand with all the subtlety of a neon sign. Marcus made his fatal mistake. Desperate to please the Platinum Elite member, he turned to the twins with pleading eyes. Ladies, I understand your position completely, but Mrs. Ashford is one of our most valued customers. We would be incredibly grateful if you'd consider her offer. We can provide each of you with a $750 travel voucher for the inconvenience. The offer wasn't just insulting, it was revealing. It exposed the entire transaction for what it was, an assumption that their comfort, their plans, their dignity could be purchased for less than $1,000. Estelle let out a short, sharp laugh devoid of any warmth. $750 to surrender seats we paid for, to accept a downgrade, all to accommodate this woman's sense of entitlement. You can't be serious. There's no need for rudeness, young lady, Vivienne sniffed, clutching her handbag as though it were armor. Before the situation could escalate further, a new voice cut through the tension. Is there a problem here? A woman in her mid-40s approached, her uniform crisp, her bearing radiating authority that Marcus clearly lacked. Her name tag identified her as Patricia Donnelly, lounge manager. Her sharp eyes took in the scene. The flustered agent, the indignant passenger, the two composed but clearly resolute young women. Vivienne immediately launched into her narrative, embellishing liberally. She spoke of her husband's anxiety about flying, her own health concerns that required front cabin seating, her years of unwavering loyalty to the airline. She painted herself as a devoted customer being unconscionably mistreated. Patricia listened without expression, her face an unreadable mask. When Vivienne finally finished, Patricia didn't immediately turn to the twins. Instead, she addressed Marcus. What does the system show? Marcus stammered, seats 2A and 2B are confirmed for Ms. Elise Crawford and Ms. Estelle Crawford. Mrs. Ashford is confirmed in seat 14D in business class. I see. Patricia turned to Vivienne, her voice polite but unyielding. Mrs. Ashford, I apologize for any confusion with your booking, but we cannot and will not forcibly relocate confirmed passengers from their assigned seats. These women are in their correct seats. That is final. For a moment, it seemed the matter might be resolved. But Vivienne Ashford was a woman who viewed rules as obstacles to be circumvented rather than boundaries to be respected. Her face transformed, the mask of civility cracking to reveal something ugly beneath. She leaned toward Patricia, her voice a venomous hiss. I know exactly what this is about. You have your diversity quotas to fill, don't you? It looks wonderful to have them sitting up front, perfect for your corporate brochures. But I'm the one who actually keeps you in business. You would do well to remember that. The accusation sucked the oxygen from the immediate vicinity. It was a direct assault, not just on the twins, but on Patricia's professional integrity. The casual cruelty of it, the assumption that success and merit couldn't possibly explain their presence, was breathtaking in its ugliness. Elise and Estelle stared at Vivienne, momentarily stunned into silence by the sheer audacity. The woman had taken their accomplishments, their hard work, their carefully planned journey, and reduced it all to a checkbox on a corporate diversity initiative. Patricia Donnelly's face, which had maintained professional neutrality, hardened into something resembling granite. When she spoke, her voice had dropped several degrees in temperature. Mrs. Ashford, I need you to lower your voice immediately. Your comments are inappropriate and offensive. Offensive? Vivienne scoffed, now playing the victim with theatrical flair. I'm the one being discriminated against. I'm being penalized because I'm not some diversity hire. That was it, the final line crossed, obliterated, set ablaze. Estelle, who had been clenching her fists in her lap, slowly relaxed them. She reached for her phone with movements that were calm, deliberate, almost meditative. When she spoke, her voice was dangerously quiet. You're absolutely right about one thing, you are a valued customer, and as such, I think you should take your concerns directly to the top. Elise watched her sister, a slow smile spreading across her face. She knew exactly what was coming. Vivienne looked momentarily confused, then smug. That's precisely what I intend to do. I'll be filing a formal complaint against all of you. No need to wait, Estelle said, already tapping a number into her phone. She activated the speaker so the entire now-silent lounge could hear. The phone rang once, twice. Then a deep, commanding voice answered, a voice that carried weight even through the small speaker. Estelle, sweetheart, is everything all right? You're supposed to be relaxing in the lounge, not calling your old man. What's wrong? Vivienne rolled her eyes elaborately, a smirk playing across her lips. Oh, how precious, calling Daddy to complain, how adorable. Patricia shifted uncomfortably. She defended the twins on principle, but involving family in a customer service dispute seemed highly irregular. Estelle ignored them both, her eyes locked on Vivienne's smug face. Hi, Dad, sorry to bother you, but we're having a small situation here at the airport, in the Transcontinental Airways Executive Lounge. Transcontinental, their father's voice sharpened with interest. What kind of situation? Well, Estelle began, her voice dripping with mock innocence. Elise and I were just asked to give up our first-class seats, seats 2A and 2B, which we booked months ago. A woman here, Mrs. Ashford, believes she's more deserving and that we should move to business class. There was a pause, then a low, humorless chuckle. Is that so, and what reason did she provide? Oh, the usual, Estelle said, her gaze never wavering from Vivienne's face. She suggested we were probably just filling a diversity quota, that her money is what truly keeps the airline operational. The lounge manager, Ms. Donnelly, tried to help, but Mrs. Ashford was quite insistent. She also mentioned something about our presence being ideal for corporate brochure photos. The silence on the other end of the phone was profound, absolute. The atmosphere in the lounge had completely shifted. The air practically crackled with tension. Everyone was listening now, conversations abandoned, drinks forgotten. Vivienne's smirk began to falter. Something about the unhurried confidence in Estelle's voice, the way she was conducting this conversation, was deeply unsettling. Finally, the voice returned, transformed. No longer warm and paternal, it was now the cold, precise voice of someone accustomed to wielding immense power. Estelle, he said, each word measured and chillingly calm, put your phone on the table. I need to speak with Ms. Donnelly. Estelle complied. Patricia Donnelly leaned forward, her expression a mixture of confusion and apprehension. This is Patricia Donnelly. Ms. Donnelly, the voice said, my name is Nathaniel Crawford. I am the Chief Operating Officer and Head of Global Operations for Crawford & Associates Holdings. As of 3 months ago, my company acquired a 60% controlling stake in Transcontinental Airways. A collective gasp rippled through the lounge, a soft, sibilant sound like air escaping from 100 balloons simultaneously. Marcus looked like he might pass out, his face going from pale to ghostly white. Vivienne Ashford's jaw literally dropped. The color drained from her face, leaving her makeup looking like a theatrical mask on a mannequin. Her Chanel bag slipped from her grasp, landing on the plush carpet with a muffled thud. The voice continued, each word a hammer blow. I personally oversaw the acquisition. I am for all practical purposes the superior of your superior's superior. Now I have two daughters, two exceptional hardworking young women who I believe you've just met. Women I'm sending to Paris to represent another of our companies. I'm looking at their booking right now on my screen. Confirmed 4 months ago, paid in full. He paused, letting the weight sink in like a stone dropping into still water. So Ms. Donnelly, I'd like you to explain something to me. Why is a Platinum Elite member's sense of entitlement and her frankly repugnant racist commentary being given more consideration than the confirmed paid-in-full tickets of 2 of my passengers? Or, to phrase it more directly, why is your team attempting to remove my daughters from their seats? The silence that followed was absolute. The symphony of privilege had ceased. There was only the sound of one devastating question hanging in the air, unanswered and unanswerable. The story was just beginning. The silence in the Transcontinental Airways Executive Lounge wasn't peaceful anymore. It was suffocating, pressing down on everyone like atmospheric pressure before a storm. Patricia Donnelly stood frozen, her mind racing. The entitled passenger she'd been managing wasn't just a nuisance. She'd just insulted the daughters of the man who now effectively owned the entire airline. The young women she defended on principle were heirs to the company she worked for. She swallowed hard, years of professional training kicking in despite the tremor in her hands. Mr. Crawford, she began, her voice remarkably steady, I apologize, there's been a serious misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Ms. Donnelly. Nathaniel's voice cut through the speaker, sharp and clear as a scalpel. I heard Mrs. Ashford's comments quite clearly repeated by my daughter. Diversity quota, corporate brochure photos. Am I quoting accurately? Patricia's eyes flickered toward Vivienne, who now resembled a wax figure melting in slow motion. Yes, sir, that is what she said. And your employee Marcus, Nathaniel continued relentlessly, offered my daughters $750 each to acquiesce to this woman's racist demands. Is that also correct? Marcus, who had been trying to disappear into the expensive wallpaper, flinched as if physically struck. He could only manage a weak, terrified nod. I see, 2 words, laden with finality that was absolutely terrifying. Ms. Donnelly, I need 3 things from you immediately, Nathaniel Crawford said, his voice filling the lounge through the speaker. First, you will personally escort my daughters to their seats and ensure their experience from this moment forward is flawless. Second, you will inform Mrs. Ashford that her ticket on this flight has been cancelled, effective immediately. Vivienne gasped a sharp, strangled sound. You can't. I can and I have, Nathaniel cut in. Your Platinum Elite status has been permanently revoked. We will refund your ticket. We are not thieves, but Transcontinental Airways has zero tolerance for the behavior you displayed today. A policy that will now be enforced without exception. He paused, then delivered the final blow. Third, Ms. Donnelly, you and Marcus will report to headquarters tomorrow morning at 9. Ask for Simone Zhao. She's my partner and the new CEO of this airline. She'll be conducting a full review of this incident and the culture that allowed it. The message was unmistakable. This wasn't about one angry passenger. It was about rot in the system. Marcus looked like he might be sick. Patricia, however, straightened. She had been caught between power and principle, but she had tried to choose the latter. We understand, Mr. Crawford, she said steadily. We'll be there. Good, his tone softened as he addressed his daughters. Elise, Estelle, I'm sorry this happened. This isn't the company I'm building. Go enjoy your flight. We'll talk when you land. I love you. We love you too, Dad, Elise replied, pride and relief tangled in her voice. The call ended. Silence flooded the lounge, thick, suffocating, heavy with consequences. Patricia moved first. She turned to Vivienne, professionalism masking the faintest edge of pity. Mrs. Ashford, your ticket has been cancelled. I need you to leave the lounge. A staff member will escort you to the main terminal. Vivienne had nothing left. The arrogance, the fury gone. She was just a woman in an expensive scarf, stripped of assumed authority. Her hands trembled as she clutched her handbag. She couldn't bring herself to look at the twins. As a junior employee guided her away, other passengers quickly returned to their phones and drinks, pretending they hadn't witnessed a public dismantling. Patricia turned back to Elise and Estelle, her voice sincere. I'm deeply sorry for what you experienced. It was unacceptable. You tried to stop it, Elise said gently. I didn't do enough, Patricia replied. I prioritized calming one loud customer instead of protecting two others. Estelle nodded. That's the problem. The system rewards whoever shouts the loudest. That system, Patricia said quietly, resolve settling in her chest, is about to change. She escorted them personally down the jet bridge. The cabin crew greeted the sisters with unmistakable respect. Welcome aboard, Ms. Crawford, the head attendant said warmly. Let me show you to your seats. As they settled into 2A and 2B, champagne appeared almost instantly. The attendant leaned in. Your father upgraded the cabin, premium service all the way. Elise and Estelle exchanged a glance over their glasses. The victory felt strange, satisfying, but sobering. Success hadn't shielded them from being questioned, challenged, or doubted. As the plane pushed back, Estelle caught sight of Vivienne being escorted through the terminal, shoulders slumped. No pity stirred, only a quiet certainty. Karma, she thought, sometimes flew nonstop. But the consequences were still unfolding. The next morning, sunlight poured through the glass walls of a downtown Denver office. Patricia Donnelly and Marcus sat rigidly across from Simone Zhao. Zhao was precision incarnate, early 60s, impeccably dressed, eyes sharp as blades. A tablet played silent security footage from the lounge. They watched every moment unfold. Vivienne's aggression, Marcus's appeasement, Patricia's intervention, the phone call that changed everything. When it ended, Zhao leaned back. I've reviewed the incident, she said calmly, and the lounge's records for the past year. She slid a thick binder across the desk. This wasn't isolated, was it? Patricia swallowed. No. Elite passengers intimidating staff, others displaced to keep them happy, Zhao continued. That culture predates you, but you were part of it. Then her gaze shifted to Marcus. Your file shows 3 similar incidents. You thought that was policy. Marcus nodded miserably. Yes, ma'am. What you were supposed to do, Zhao said, controlled anger sharpening her voice, was uphold the contract. Treat every passenger with dignity. Status does not grant the right to harass others. She closed the binder with finality. That ends today. She rose and crossed to the window overlooking the city, its lights pulsing like a living organism. Nathaniel and I didn't acquire this airline for prestige, Simone Zhao said calmly. We saw a chance to build the best airline in the world, not just newer planes or better seats, but the best service. And the foundation of great service is respect. She turned back to them. As of today, the entire management team at the Denver Executive Lounge is being replaced, including you, Ms. Donnelly. Patricia's breath caught. She had expected discipline, maybe a demotion, not this. However, Zhao continued, you are not being fired. Patricia looked up, stunned. Your handling of yesterday's incident wasn't flawless, Zhao said, but it was principled. You challenged Mrs. Ashford before you knew who the Crawford sisters were. That tells me something about your character, and character can be shaped into leadership. Zhao's gaze sharpened. I'm reassigning you. You will lead a complete rewrite of our customer service training manual for every transcontinental executive lounge worldwide. You'll design a new curriculum centered on equity and accountability. Yesterday's incident, audio recording included, will be the primary case study. You're going to turn that moment into a lesson every employee learns from. Patricia felt the weight of it, loss and opportunity intertwined. This wasn't just a second chance. It was a chance to matter. Thank you, she said, voice thick. I won't waste it. Zhao nodded, then turned to Marcus. Marcus, she said, her tone softer but firm. You followed a toxic culture instead of your conscience. That decision ends your employment here. His shoulders sagged. But I believe mistakes can teach, Zhao added. I'm placing you with a logistics firm that needs dispatchers. It's demanding work, no privilege, no shortcuts. After a year, if you prove you've learned respect and accountability, you may reapply to Transcontinental starting in cargo operations. It wasn't kindness, it was earned redemption. Marcus swallowed and nodded. I understand, thank you. After they left, Zhao picked up her phone and dialed legal. That passenger from yesterday, Vivienne Ashford, she said. Yes, draft a letter to her husband, Gregory Ashford, senior partner at Morrison & Blake. She smiled coldly. Inform him we're terminating our multi-million-dollar retainer with his firm effective immediately. Include the full transcript of the lounge incident. I want him to see exactly what liability his wife has become. This wasn't personal anymore. It was corporate consequence. While Elise and Estelle Crawford crossed the Atlantic in quiet triumph, the fallout detonated inside Vivienne Ashford's carefully curated world. Gregory Ashford was in the middle of a high-stakes pharmaceutical merger when his assistant interrupted. An unthinkable breach. "Sir," she whispered, pale, "a priority courier from Crawford and Associates, delivered by hand, immediately." Gregory's chest tightened. Crawford and Associates was one of the firm's crown jewels. He excused himself and opened the envelope in his office overlooking Manhattan. Inside were two documents, a formal letter from Simone Zhao and a transcript. The letter was mercilessly brief. It detailed his wife's racist, defamatory, and reputationally catastrophic behavior towards senior members of Transcontinental's executive family. The final paragraph gutted him. Effective immediately, Crawford and Associates Holdings and all subsidiaries are terminating their retainer and contracts with Morrison and Blake. $18 million a year, gone. His hands trembled as he read the transcript. Vivienne's words leapt off the page entitled "Venomous, Ignorant," and then the names appeared. Nathaniel Crawford. Understanding hit like a hammer. His wife hadn't embarrassed him. She had annihilated him. His phone buzzed. "Now," the managing partner said. There was no argument, no debate. "Resign quietly," the partner said, "or we remove you publicly." Gregory resigned. That night he came home to find Vivienne pacing, wine in hand, still furious. "You won't believe how I was treated," she snapped. "My status gone, humiliated by those girls." Gregory stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. "I know," he said quietly. "I received the letter and the transcript." Her voice faltered. "Because of you," he continued, "my firm lost its biggest client, and I lost my job." She froze. "You insulted the daughters of Nathaniel Crawford," he said, fury breaking through. "A man I spent months advising. You didn't throw a tantrum, you declared war." He laughed bitterly. "Our life is over, the invitations will stop, the friends will vanish, and it's because you couldn't stand seeing two black women succeed." The wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on marble. The truth finally landed. A week later in Paris, Elise and Estelle Crawford stood before a global audience at the International Tech Innovation Conference. Their keynote earned a standing ovation. They spoke with brilliance, clarity, and purpose. Afterward, a representative from Crawford and Associates approached them. "The board has approved a new initiative," she said. "The Transcontinental Grant for Emerging Innovators, $12 million to support startups led by women and people of color. We'd like you on the selection committee." They were stunned. But there was more. Transcontinental was launching a new campaign, the new face of First Class. The portfolio slid across the table revealed the lead image, two confident black women seated in first class, laptops open, laughing together. The tagline read, "The journey is yours, your seat is earned." Elise and Estelle exchanged a glance, understanding the poetry of it all. Vivienne Ashford had tried to erase them from the front of the plane. Instead, they became the face of the airline. And somewhere in a silent Connecticut mansion, a disgraced lawyer and his wife would see that image, again and again, a permanent reminder of how one moment of prejudice dismantled an empire of entitlement. The phone call hadn't just restructured a team. It had rewritten the rules. And in its wake, justice took first class.